Hello, hello. What's going on? Is this real life? Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Can anyone hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Leandro. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, that's crazy. I wonder if I was broadcasting for an hour and nobody could hear me.
Could be. I'm tuning in on the show and I couldn't hear anything. So maybe
Okay.
that
Well,
happens. That happens.
let's get going then. So I'm gonna turn off my camera.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think you turned out everything, not just the camera. I cannot see you nor hear you. No, I cannot see you.
Okay, how about now?
Okay, you're back.
Okay. Excellent. Well, boy, that's exciting. Oh, I guess I've been prattling on for about an hour and nobody could hear me. That's what you get for a new interface. And it looks like Leandro was not able to stick around and chat. So let's continue the conversation that I started last hour, which is rest of the world and patterns. So we got Senor Perf coming back. Let's add him back.
Yeah, I was having a little glitch here as well. So it's fun when you are live streaming live demos, right?
So Leandro, it's been a while. Welcome to
Yeah,
the Black Friday edition of News of the Damned. And I think you have relocated from Mexico to Europe. Did I hear that
yeah,
correctly?
yeah. I'm in the process of relocating, not yet successfully. This system migration has taken a little bit longer than expected. um, so the new servers didn't have all the license keys available, and I'm waiting for them. In other
Uh,
words, I'm waiting for my visa to be delivered to me, but the printer is very slow, so
you
I'm in
know,
between places.
these things happen. You know, look, I've been prattling on for an hour, and and we have a great comment from Robin Haynes. Did you test it? Well, evidently I didn't test it well enough in order to go live. So, shame on me in that sense. So, I guess we can do a little bit of repeat for the first hour for what I was chatting about there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me know what happened in the earliest hour. I wasn't here either, so.
first hour, we were really just chatting about patterns and how important those are in analysis for systems, because really patterns are how we identify what to make changes to deliver value. Um, as a performance professional, my value is determined by what recommendation I make that has a beneficial change to the system. And that beneficial change is either in terms of response time to the client, conversion rates,
Mhm.
scalability, supportability, resilience, or a couple of other dimensions as well. And that's really what we want everyone to be able to do in the performance profession, not just run a test to gather data. And we all
Yeah.
forget running a test generates data. What do you do with that? You want that data to be actionable. You want to take that and say, even if I'm within spec, whatever spec is, I want to make a change that improves one or more dimensions of performance, because that's how I measure my value to the organization. And there are a lot of ways you can make those changes. I was talking about obvious patterns, such as a missing index on the database. that results in a table scan. Patterns such as the landing page is dynamic instead of being fully cached.
Mm.
Too early allocation patterns where a developer is handing something out that 50% plus one don't use, even to the extent of patterns related to size. You know, the 45 megabyte image that wound up on a jQuery website in 2018 that was not cached, or even
Oh.
this N+1 pattern, which Andy Grabneri of Dynatrace even talked about last week, which is I make a query to a database for something, and then I take that something in the key, and then I make a whole bunch of other subqueries to other tables to gather data to bring it together. This N+1 problem is very expensive, and it's been around a long
Mm-hmm.
time. It is these patterns that we look for, and they show up in terms of profiling in the system. And profiling you can do dynamically, as in the case of tools like Dynatrace or New Relic or things of that nature, or you can use traditional developer tools when you are looking at the system. And
Mm-hmm.
in my case, one of our new sponsors, Perficuity, uses data from web logs to profile the system. So kind of a passive profiling of the system. And then I went through some kind of rest of the world stuff and showed some of the tools that one of our sponsors is providing for the show for use. For instance, looking at the rest of the world, we have this issue of failures on Black Friday. So
Mm-hmm.
let's take a look at some of the failures that have occurred in the rest of the world. We'll kind of size this down so it's easy to see. And we have a fashion site in India that went down, which is snitch.com. On their Black Friday sale, they went down a couple days ago. Let's
Ooh.
take a look at what snitch.com looks like from these patterns perspective.
Okay. And how does it look? What can you see, amigo?
So I'm using some of the tools that have been provided to us by Perficuity. These are kind of pre-public tools. And oh my goodness, I don't know if you're looking at your website or your feed, but we've got an F here from a scoring, which
Mm.
makes sense that they would have gone down. And there are a couple of patterns that they need to be aware of. One is the Steve Souders rule set that really apply to caching and page rendering and things of that nature. And then you have this issue of too early allocation with a cart preload that is going on. And we can see down below a very common pattern that we see, which is this issue of Shopify. This shows up time and time again on the cart preload side of the house. And we'll take a look at Snitch on this cart analysis tool, and we'll see what it looks like. And you can see that as soon as someone shows up on the site, we have these network flows to the
Mm.
most distant architectural component in the system, which is the cart management system. It's usually a database for storage, where we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cart objects that are being accessed across the network. So not just one, but we're making those calls 11 times. And this is to the platform Shopify. And this is, to Robin's question, creating a cart in case the user selects an item. But this fails the too early allocation question. The too early
Mm-hmm.
allocation question is, does 50% plus one use an item? And in the case of carts, it's traditionally about 20% or fewer on any given visit. actually has a use of a cart. So you have to size your system to handle all of these carts. In the case of a spot sale, you can think of someone like a Taylor Swift,
Oh,
store.taylorswift.com, which I think I might have archived down here. Let's see if I can take a look. I don't, but let's go and take a look at that.
while you check at it, I want to point out how lately Taylor Swift has become, of load testers and performance engineers, the best example to give out. Because generally she has enough requests, and everything that she makes,
Yep,
she's become the saint patron of our performance engineers lately.
she really has. I mean, we look at this, and so Ms. Swift, let's say she drops 100 albums. We should really only be
Oh,
issuing 100 carts, 100 copies of an album, and a really high gram vinyl, that people are going to
mm-hmm,
want. She may have 300,000 people show up on our site for 100 copies of an album,
mm-hmm.
and you
And just
look
at the launch date, speaking of a spike test, right?
and you look at what's going on here. She has all these card objects in memory. Shopify API. Those are network calls.
Oh,
And all of this is going on before someone even makes a decision to buy. You're giving all of this resource set to someone without there even being a revenue decision that's been made, which is a really bad decision on the part of a developer. But I'm seeing more and more often this issue of Shopify come up whenever there is a failure, even to a grocery store like HEB, that had a failure a while back. They have, I thought they had a Shopify cart at one point. There we go. Complete cart object, Shopify. I see this over and over and over as a pattern. And what I suspect is happening is that Shopify on their platform, when you create a merchant account, automatically issues a cart.
speaking of storage, right?
Well, think about that from a resource perspective. What does that mean for Shopify? They have 2.5 million active merchants. Today, on Black Friday, they will sell about 2/3 of all products that are sold today. How much resource do they have to buy additionally just to support all of those carts that are not converting?
When you mention that, it just makes me think. This saying that if you want to do a good investment, when people find gold, don't invest on gold, invest on who is selling the picks and the tools that they are going to use. It's not like
Yeah.
Shopify is a tool in this situation. I'm really curious to know how is Shopify situation at this moment, where we are having every site apparently mounting some elements from Shopify, their cards and everything. Whoa, you just made me slightly worried for them.
Well, they have two models. Like they have a premier model, which I think gives you some dedicated resources, and they also have a commodity model, which is a little bit lower. But you can see across the board on this cart analysis system, Shopify for items that are going down, Shopify. It becomes a very, very common item. And I wonder if Shopify is aware of the additional cost incurred in their infrastructure to support this default cart model. So from a performance engineering perspective, we have costs that we can contain So if anyone from Shopify is listening and say, okay, I think we could measure the actual cost associated with this. Perpetuity, who has supplied some of these tools for us to use during the show today, just filed a patent last week that does exactly that, which is to have a model for measuring out of for every dollar spent, how much of that is waste.
Oh, wow. And it's funny because you're making me also notice that every site that has Shopify mounted on them, I see many unnecessary calls, probably reiterative and common programming errors that we see usually in performance terms.
Yep.
That, I mean, probably Shopify might be happy about this happening because I'm guessing they charge for each time you call them or this
Well,
usage.
their revenue model is based upon checkouts. They get a fee, they get some fees for hosting, but most of their money is made off of fees for checking out. So you would think they would want the highest possible conversion rate. And if
Mm-hmm.
they have this tether of a default shopping cart, that also minimizes the conversion rate, because it gets to that breakover point where people say the site is too slow because we're waiting on cart stuff, and I just leave.
Mm-hmm.
If I was
One question in that perspective: what is the alternative? How organizations should implement this to avoid this type of? I'm not sure it's a between an annoyance for the customer because they are waiting, but at the same time, some of them want to be back and see the cart full and ready from everything that they were picking during the week and getting ready for Black Friday, right?
Well, I can tell you that for an e-commerce top 50, when they moved from a default shopping cart model to a just-in-time cart model, and a just-in-time cart model basically says, I'm going to give you a cart when you put something in the cart, or when you click on the cart icon to look at what's in the cart. That difference, just in when they handed out the cart, met $10 million more per month in revenue.
Okay, those numbers convince for anybody listening and tuning in. $10 million. Do you like to keep them or just
Yeah, I
throw
mean
them away?
that's a significant difference from a revenue perspective.
Yeah,
And
yeah, of course.
people really should be aware that from a performance engineering perspective, we look at two sides of the balance sheet. We can either improve your revenue or we can improve your costs. If you can do both at the same time, that's like, solving the high quality, fast and cheap triangle problem, where you get only 2 out of 3. But if I can give you better revenue and I can give you better cost, that makes your balance sheet so much better overall.
No, and you are not mentioning here a third component because if the cart is blazing fast or the users are not sitting there waiting for things to happen and all this cart being prepared and etc., you also get more sales, not only more revenue, uh,
Yes,
gross volume, right?
you do, because what happens is that tether associated with the default cart acts as a drag anchor on the system. And it's not just a default cart. This is anytime you pre-allocate something that 50% plus one do not use. That tether on every single page slows down the page render. So you get a tip over point for a portion of your user community. And it's usually the user community that's on the longest distant network to your site. So if your site is in the United States and you have users in Europe and Asia, those are the people that are most inconvenienced by this difference in performance, and where you will have your higher abandonment rates the more distant you get. And inversely, it's the same as if a site is in Europe and your user is in the United States, they're going to have an abandonment rate that's higher than those that are in Europe, because of the impact of network in that case. And you can see this not only in terms of e-commerce, but if you have a CRM solution that's hosted in Europe and you have a bunch of users in the United States, multi-tenant CRMs have a lot of redirects, and they're going to have a very, very poor performance in the
Ooh,
United
yeah.
States. So move your instance to the United States, or divide your instance. So you have one instance for Europe and one instance for the United States. You get much better performance overall.
Yeah, CDNs distributing your content. If you are like a global page, I'm thinking, I don't know, Taylor Swift has to be global and more than that.
He does,
But
and Shopify has a CDN, but
mhm.
this issue of the default shopping cart tunnels all the way through the CDN, and as a result, they lose sales, and they tip over the site.
Mhm. No, and the user experience distributing and overloading. I don't know. It's very interesting. I would like to see what happens live right now. Right now, I would like to see what is to be inside of Shopify's data centers and CDN endpoints.
Oh, I'm
Boy, that
sure it's very, very busy in their data center right now.
yeah. I wouldn't like to be a SRE today at Shopify. Has to be the most interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be a really ugly day for them, in terms of, you have all those merchants, you have all this extra resource that's being allocated, that you have to watch, and you have that other pattern. Not only are we pre-allocating, but how long are these sites holding on to the resource? In the last hour, I
Hmm.
spoke about a ecoin exchange in Asia that was holding on to resources for 48 hours because someone in marketing said, well, we don't want people to be inconvenienced when they come back. They'll just attach to their old session. Well,
Oh.
that meant that it looked like it had millions of users on the site, when in actuality, they only had a couple thousand at any given point. But that
Hmm.
millions of users and those blocks of resources associated with session all locked up meant that on busy days on the eCoin exchange, it would tip over because it had no more resources to give to people.
Yeah. Even if this is most probably they have everything, their infrastructure and everything on the cloud, where they tend to be configured as elastic or keep, I don't know, grow as requested. But even so, if you are already hoarding some of, well, many of the resources due to this, what would you call it? Like a lack of preview or idea of what is going to happen once everything grows, as you say, the 50 plus one.
Well, I mean, the default condition in our industry is give everybody a cart. That is the default one.
Mhm.
It's also the easiest one. When I have a compelling event to make a change, then I will make a change. But most cases, it is give everybody a cart, and it's
Yeah.
actually quite expensive to do that. And in fact, let's see if we can take a look at someplace else and see if it also has the same problem. There's
Okay.
a French electronics site, fnac.com. It went down earlier. Let's see if it's back.
Mm.
Let's see if it's back up.
It's still struggling.
It looks
And
like,
this is just a site for France, right? It's not worldwide available. It's just for one country, one region, and it's not holding on. Imagine if it was like a global site again, Taylor Swift, or I heard Nintendo is also very busy these days, Nintendo.com, etc.
yep. So notice, here's Black Friday for FNAC,
Hmm.
and let's see what they're doing. Um, let's use the big tool. Let's do the whole enchilada, no pun intended.
Thank you, thank you.
And actually, they're not doing too bad from a cart preload perspective. So they're not handing out
Hmm.
that by default, but they're really bad on Souders rules for how pages are constructed, which means they probably have CDN issues where they're not caching stuff effectively. Notice we
Hmm.
can see this. They have compression issues. They have some page design issues. They have some cache control issues. They are using CDN. Um, they could be using a more efficient protocol. They're using HTTP2. They could be using Speedy, which is HTTP3, to get a little bit better performance in this case. But they probably just simply ran out of resources from a too many users perspective. They don't have this pre-allocation issue as far as we can
Well,
tell.
there are times where even as you prepare and you try your best to stay ahead, sometimes, and I know of many organizations on Black Friday that are like, yeah, I did my best, blah, blah, and they are more successful than they expected, and they have too many people.
Yep.
Now, not only people, on Black Friday, we have the situation of the bots, and that can also make things a bit ugly, right?
Yes, and in fact, one of the major tool vendors has a um, has a note out today from Radware. Bad bots are back, and
Hmm.
Eva Abergel breaks down the 2025 e-commerce bot threat report. Bots are very easy to address, and in
But
fact, if you analyze your logs, you'll be able to go and find, by location, by frequency, by behavior,
mhm.
by user agent, that you can just tailor those out. And I find myself more and more these days advising customers to block all cloud provider sites.
There's another situation now that I think we are going to be facing, and I'm not sure um, if this is filtered this way, because we are used to the traditional bots, but lately there are as well AI bots that are scraping like crazy to learn about our sites. I, I mean, human being that likes Black Friday and do shopping on these dates. I was looking for some Black Friday deals, some situations, and the AI chatbots were telling me, yeah, in this store I found this, in that store I found that. There are these different options that they are scraping your site. They are accessing it several times every time that you have a new element. Few of them, I heard that they are building cards to analyze all these situations. What do you think on these new situations, amigo?
Well, we still have the issue of where are they coming from? So that's location. Where are these bots running from? If they're running in data centers, we should be able
Hmm.
to identify those by IP address. If they're running, if they have a user agent that is unique or distinct enough, we should be able to catch them that way. If they have a
Yeah.
high frequency, we should be able to catch them that way. Like every poker player, every bot has a tell. And the tell
Hmm.
is either in location, frequency, behavior, um, an attribute. For instance, they may not be requesting all the assets on the page where a real user does. There's some sort of tell. And as soon as you find the tell, boom, you can tailor them out. And what I like to do is send them to a slow node in my network. So if I have a
Yeah.
cluster of servers, I want one server just for the bots that I can identify. and I will redirect all of those bots to that server. And if it goes down, that's okay. If it throws 503 errors, is too busy, that's okay, because they're
Yeah.
bots. All they're doing is stealing resources from me, and they're not bringing me revenue.
Hmm. Well, some of them might. When they are being used as I was using these AI bots to tell me what were the nicest Black Friday deals, given my interest, I don't know, in microphones, cameras, the new video games, etc.
Yep.
I think in the end, it was good for the organization that allowed the bot to scrape and feed information to the users. But this is a particular example. Some others, you are being compared to the cheapest Chinese or knockoff option, and then you may lose revenue. So it's an interesting situation where what to do with the bots from the performance engineer perspective, where yes, you want your resources to be good used and the best bang for the buck. If you are providing these resources, that they end up in a sale or some sort of profit, right? But it's I think it's getting very interesting and like chasing your tail, trying to figure out the patterns for these bots and then to decide what to do to them. Like, hey, are you scraping my site? Why don't I give you an API so that you are happy and you can just get the information you need? Or which are the nice ones, the ones that you can talk to the organization. There are many other sites that will not ask. They will keep trying to use these rogue bots to access your site and extract this information. And as you say, filtering by IP behavior patterns, or if they are too well robotic, right? But I have a feeling they are going to start to evolve quite a bit in these days, if they haven't already. Because I'm curious, these AI chat GPTs or model trainer scrappers, what are they doing to bypass these things? Because I have heard that they are an interesting problem for many organizations, not only about their information that was probably very difficult for them to come up with, and you are not even accessing their site anymore because the bot already extracted everything and indexed it for a ChatGPT to tell you. Have you heard of any new patterns or things that now we have to be aware? And especially today, I'm sure that bots and AI bots are busier today than other dates, right?
Well, I have attacked this problem from a standpoint of location.
Mm-hmm.
What I find is that location attribute of where these bots are located is it's not usually just one location, but it's multiple bots in the same location. So you have an IP address range that people are coming in, and you're able to get a volume of requests from that area and able to tailor them out. And it looks like we have Mr. Heinrich Rexed who has joined us. Let's add him to this conversation regarding bots and performance. Heinrich, welcome to the show.
Hello,
You're,
Hey,
amigo Henrik.
you're at Dynatrace these days. How does Dynatrace find those bots in the environment that are distorting performance?
that's an excellent question. There's plenty of different way. We through our user monitoring, so RAM solution, we are able to capture the bots because we know different how they present themselves as fake browsers. So we are detecting them through this, and also you can also detect that through IP addresses that sounds very suspicious. So locations, I would say, depending on the store, of course, that we're referring. So here I see on the that you have a list of websites that you may, I don't know if you refer to them, but the first one in the list is a retailer in France. So if you have traffic from, I don't know, Sri Lanka, for example, there's a very low chance that a customer will buy from that place to purchase any items. So yeah, we do both with those two information. So user agent or how the fake browser is presenting himself to the server.
I'm right with you on that. That location attribute, I think, is a giant tell. Um, Before you joined, I was sharing with Leandro that I've been instructing more and more clients these days to just block data centers, to block everything listed under Amazon, Google, one in one, IBM's cloud, Cloud Azure, unless you are connecting to something that you need to whitelist in those areas and you can definitively show revenue coming from an address in those data centers, your risk is substantially increased. Um, it's hard to deal with bots that are preloaded on these little AV devices that you can buy from vendors all around the world. You know, they're usually built in China. They're preloaded with bot software. You don't even know it, and it's coming from somebody's house where it's being used as a little entertainment device. Those are much more difficult to address. But I think the location ones you mentioned coming from Sri Lanka, those are a lot easier.
Yeah, completely. But also to your points, I think the white, I mean the cloud, depending on, of course, if you rely on cloud providers, you will have, of course, to make sure that you whitelist that. Otherwise, but now these days, if you consider the fact that there's I don't know, one fish. I mean, I receive phishing attacks almost every day. So even if someone is trapping in those phishing attacks, then your computer could be used as a bot as well. So even if I'm sitting in a safe locations, or not safe locations, but the location that could be targeted from a retailer based in Europe, if I was being phished with a phishing email, yeah, my computer could be acting as a bot while I'm working gently on my day-to-day work.
And not only as a bot, it might be another technique that I have heard that you become a tono, like you're VPNing these bots, and they can route. Sometimes I noticed that I got something funky in my computer where I'm like, why is my network card so busy if I'm not opening anything right now? So some of these situations where you can tell and figure out that something, they are finding ways to go over these situations. I like a lot the one that you mentioned, Henrik, where you could detect what type of browser activity, if the browser is actually on browser, things like that. I'm sure Dynatrace is easily identifying, right?
We were more, we don't put any agents on a desktop. That's not the purpose, but we
No,
put
no,
them
no,
on
no. I mean, not the agents, but detecting that it's an actual browser or that it looks
yeah,
more
yeah.
human rather than just an automatic machine triggering, accessing, trying to leverage it. Not only by location, because nowadays there are some sneaky tricks that they can use to bypass it, right?
I mean today, just if you look, because we've been moving to cloud native, which is fantastic. I mean, I love the cloud space. It's innovations happen so fast, but there's a lack of security, or I think there's an indication going on at the moment, but people are missing some obvious things in the security space when they build the containers or when they deploy it. I think they have to understand that by default there's a like a common trust in those environments. So putting those zero trust policies in the environments would avoid having someone taking control, putting a bot, or utilizing your local workload. So use spin up new containers to do whatever they want there. So to attack or to run bots on over websites. So it's yeah, it's security has never been as much as important today. Of course, it was a few years back, but now it's like super super important because it's very easy to be hacked, to be honest.
I think that as time passes, it's like cat and mouse chase every time that there's another countermeasure. I don't know if calling them bad actors, but let's go with that. They keep finding ways to go around, and the security measures. Yeah, you have to keep growing and increasing your understanding knowledge. If you are maintaining any cloud device or resources, you gotta be aware at least of the basics, how to avoid these type of situations on two ways. One, not letting your um, cloud elements being misused or attacked or targeted, and as well that when you're hosting your sites, they are configured to receive or deny these requests that James was accessing, to have the rules to say, hey, it sounds like you come from this site and this place. I don't like those places. Please go to this slow one or non-responsive one.
but
It's
but
it's a big
it's
rabbit hole.
but have you seen the what was it was before this summer? I think it was in June or it was in May. I don't remember the exact date. But have you heard about the how they compromise a library that comes into every distro of Linux or Unix or Debian, whatever packages?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
It's
I did hear about that.
and it's so funny because it's basically it's been a year or 3 years story where the attacker was trying to gain their trust within the open source community because it was related to packages that was going to be that belongs to like a core library of the distributions. So the guys just pretend that they are very nice. They do some real contribution. So the target, for example, they take an open source project and then they say, okay, oh, there's only one maintainer. So that guy will have to approve every single PR that has been sent to the community. So the guys is doing what he can to provide value to the market. So nobody is helping him. And then suddenly someone guy starts to open a lot of issues. So then a lot of issues is there. And then a random guy dude arrived and then help and say, oh, I'm going to take that PR. I'm going to tell that issue. I'm going to work on it. And then he make the PR. Like the guy looks at the code is fine. And then suddenly you gain trust within the open source community. And the guy, after several months of collaborations, the guy decided to put his as a maintainer. And then, baba, that's where the guys start to include into the CI/CD systems and the build process some weak binary. So when the binary was builded, the guy was injecting the actual backdoor to all the Linux servers. So it basically it built it slowly, and then suddenly most of the releases were happening in Europe because the maintainer was living in Europe, and suddenly one release happened in the middle of the night, and that was the only release. And this is where the guy built the actual binary that was going to be shipped in all the Linux distros, and then all the distro the next day updated, boom, got all this suspicious
Hmm.
package, and then everyone was being basically they have a backdoor to all the servers that had that distribution. So that was a main concern. And the funny story is how the guy detected it. The guy was basically doing some tests about, I don't know, he was working on a networking things on a Linux package, and he was testing at home, and then suddenly he was seeing some weird activities on the kernel and on the networking side, and he said, this is suspicious. So then he started to dig in and dig in and dig in and say, oh man, wait a minute, we have a backdoor here. So then he reported that, and then I think the community was amazing because at the end, in few hours, few days, the community was all together working on that problem, resolved it, released it, and then of course all the enterprise or the open source distributions of Linux systems upgraded very fast their servers. Meaning that, listen, learn, if you don't update and upgrade your packages, yeah, then you're being weak.
One interesting thing about that story, on one hand, I'm waiting for the movie to come out because the plot is so convoluted and interesting that this is definitely movie material. But the coolest part for me, the way in which this was detected was kind of like mere accident, that someone was curious about the performance being degraded in the system and started to research, check logs, check things, and like, what is this thing doing? It's like we have like a Trojan here or something is snatched up to the code doing something and we don't know what it is. Let's dig out. and then ooh. So this, I don't know. Don't underestimate performance testing detection efforts. You can uncover a multi-year plot happening for, and I think that this was world
This is
domination, right?
this is how the bots were detected on those little AV devices that you can buy from kiosks all around the world. Is that a researcher bought one of those devices and found that traffic was being generated from that device out of their home. And so they took the device to their lab and just put everything on it, watch what was going on through the firewall and things of that nature, and discovered that these devices were coming from China primarily, preloaded with entire botnet solutions to address this issue of how do you detect bots if they're coming in from 2 million locations
Hmm.
on what looks like consumer IP addresses. So now you've got a full botnet out in the universe that you can rent out to people for buying Taylor Swift tickets or for malicious activity and things of that nature.
But
So something that we haven't really talked about, which is also on the dangerous side for performance, and I've got an item up on the screen that as an example of what a top 200 user bot looks like inside of an organization, um, generating almost a quarter of the load just from 200 users.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a lot of money that you're paying for IT real estate that's not generating you anything. But one of those patterns that I look for is I look for large carts, large perpetual carts in the database, things on the order of 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 items in a cart. Those, if they're loaded at the wrong time or in combination, can easily
it's a very
cause
big tell.
stop the world garbage collection when they're all unloaded at once. And freeze your site. So that's a opportunity for malicious activity. If you are a vendor and you have these large carts in your system, find a way to have them not loaded on Black Friday and events like this, because they can easily tip you over as these carts come into memory and they have to grab all of this RAM that's resource not available to anyone else. And if your timeout is set for 30 minutes, which is common for e-commerce websites, you're not going to recover that pool for quite a long time.
and that's
It's
where
a
this is where observability makes sense again.
it's how you detect it, yeah, and this type of behaviors, and especially on these dates, because if you're on a Black Friday scenario and you are having all these bots filling the carts like crazy, doing all sorts of activities for their benefit, at the same time you have all the users in, I don't know if you're in your user base or customer base or potential sales going like crazy in these days. To prepare for all of that has to be, it's really crucial and not the easiest. I think that as performance engineers, we have to also help the organization and filter up what are the most optimal things that we can do. Because as James says, this if you are not protected about these cart behaviors that can bring down the system or make unsecure your platform, that's a big issue. But as well, from availability sides, performance sides, what is going to make them slow, what is going to make it non-responsive? Because I think the biggest concern that organizations have to have just today, Black Friday, where Friday, November 28th, 2025, it's Black Friday, everybody's going crazy, myself included, on some online site where you can buy stuff. I think the biggest that we as performance engineers should care for is not to bring down the site, to guarantee that it's going to be up and responsive, that it's going to be helping our users to do the purchases that they want to take advantage of, I don't know, the offers or sales that you have on this day, and to not to be. I always remind James's story of this organization that was super happy with their product because so many users wanted to buy it that the site went down, and it's like you should be excited about that. You're not being able to sell it, right?
I mean, it's very weird is you have situations like that where marketing is excited when the site goes down. I'm like, no, no, revenue has gone to zero. This is a bad condition. You do not be happy about this.
It's something that as well, it's not only, I mean, this is the date of Black Friday. We are streaming this show because it's incredibly relevant at the moment, but there are some other times of the year. Think of, we always bring this example, right? Super Bowl, tax
Mo-
declaration dates on your country, Taylor Swift, of course, as I was saying, Saint
Mother's Day,
Taylor, Mother's
Mother's
Day.
Day for buying flowers. No, nobody gets dad flowers for Father's Day. I just want to point that out. But Mother's Day, everyone gets flowers.
Yeah, I'm not that I'm a father, but I would like to get some flowers here and there. But speaking from my perspective, some other events, and I'm going to talk about one that happened this year that I was impacted by as not a mother, but on the other side, there was a video game release early this year. I think it was around September. If any gamer is tuning in, Hollow Knight was a video game that I enjoyed incredibly, and they announced that they were launching a continuation. Silk Song Hollow Knight 2 was launched, and they didn't expect the game to be that popular that even the digital storefronts crashed from multiple platforms. Like you had Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, multiple platforms trying to keep up with everybody wanting to buy the game, download it. And this is an interesting situation where the industry has moved, at least on the video game side. Most people nowadays do not go to stores to buy the video games, they download them now. So it was not only the release date where you had to complete the sale, the monetary transaction, but also you had to allow the users to download the game. And this is nowadays several gigabytes big video games. I challenge you with your Xboxes, every time that you want to play and there's an update, you have to wait at least 30 minutes for the big download to happen and install. Imagine that happening multiplied by the number of users that are excited about the game, like I was. And it took a few, at least for me, it was until the second or third week that I could actually play the game. And this is something that that was my situation to play the game. It was already paid in the pre-sale, but other people trying to buy it at the launch moment could not. And I mean, taking into account these different elements, you never think like, yeah, I'm selling a game, but they are also downloading a huge amount of information per sale. So these little things that you have to take into account, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and I think now they're doing it pretty in a smart way. Like you said, you can pre-order the game, and then they very it's a way. I mean, I'm pretty sure that when GTA 6 will release,
Oh, that's gonna be
it's gonna be
interesting. Yeah.
it's gonna be epic because everyone is waiting for it. So there are a lot of pre-orders will happen, and then the D1, if the online game is out there already. I don't know. I mean, assume people will start playing on the game without be online first, and then go online. But I would be interested to see a number of players that will reach those servers.
There were two events earlier this month related to the video game industry. One was the Video Game Awards. They were taking
Yeah.
votes, and their site went down on the second day. And it seemed to be clearly related to they weren't cleaning up sessions effectively. They were holding on to resources, and they had a direct one-to-one relationship between the front end and the back end collecting votes. This is a great opportunity to talk about queues, acting as a buffer in that case, not having that direct one-to-one connection. but putting your vote into a queue where it can be processed. So that's one issue. And the second issue is Xbox Live changed their
Oh, that's another
subscription
one.
model, and they went down for people who were canceling their subscriptions to Xbox Live, that they so irritated that community. And I'll freely admit I don't play online games because I know I have a gaming problem, and it will keep me there for a long period of time. Um, but I do understand that people that enjoy their games, but it seems that Microsoft made a bad decision on the Xbox Live side with people canceling by changing their subscription model. Before we go on, I do want to speak about our sponsors for this year's show. We have a number of sponsors. We have American Technology Venture Lab, which is an objectives-based, mentor-driven venture development program for new ventures. So if you have an idea that you're developing and you want to grow to be the next unicorn or unicorn-like company, the American Technology Venture Lab is happy to speak with you about how to help you grow. Their mentors come from all over the universe, from the New York financial district, from people that have spent some of their careers in Silicon Valley and built and sold companies, intellectual property attorneys, people that have developed patents and commercialized them. So there's a lot of people there that can help you grow. Also, Spartans First, a not-for-profit organization whose focus is helping law enforcement and first responders and their families, particularly in times of crisis, also helping communities grow and prosper and build economically. And then finally, helping people of limited sight improve the quality of their life. Hopefully, the chairman of both those organizations, Dennis Hayes, will be joining soon, and he'll be able to give a little bit more detail on those organizations. But without the support of organizations like that, shows like this would not be possible. So please visit our sponsors' websites, americantechnologyventurelab.org and spartansfirst.org, and find out more about those organizations. So back to our crashes. While you two gentlemen were speaking, I noticed that there was a site in England that sells sweatshirts that went offline this morning, which is the Cricket England site for sweatshirts and things of that nature. So it seems to be a day for fashion sites to go offline. Snitch.com in India earlier, as an example. And I took a look at their website, and once again, we have this common pattern of cart preload and poor use of the Souders rules. And going down, let's see what we have. In this case, we have WooCommerce. But look at this number of cart components that are preloaded right up front. That's amazing. 18 cart components. And we can come and look on a more detailed basis, and we can actually see all of these cart components. So if I was a developer, I could say, okay, do I really need all of these cart components in my front end as soon as someone lands on the site? Well, some developer made the decision that, yeah, I need all these items. And that's just crazy. All those DOM components, that's all memory on the client. But then we get down to these network calls, and these are all requests to the back end right up front. That's just craziness on my part, especially just the quantities.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they probably want to do that to preload the website and gain in performance later on once you are in the website. But it basically has a damage on impact on the actual behavior, and especially Google detects those sort of stats, which is not in their advantage for sure.
Yeah,
I will have to. I have I have a meeting, so I need to join the my professional meeting. So I will have to drop.
Henrik,
Um,
thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to be able to be on a podcast with you. Once again, it's been too long, and
yep.
hopefully, the interval will not be as long this next time.
Cool. I agree. Fully agree.
Let's
So
stay tuned.
yeah, have a good end of the show, guys. See you.
Thank you.
Yeah, enjoy your Black Friday, Henry.
Thanks.
Bye bye. So, amigo James, this is an interesting situation that Henrik mentioned because this is a new, not so new, but a design pattern that is implemented in theory to make user experience a little bit better. This preloading of the cards or components. These some sites have even embedded some predictive preload of elements,
Yep.
which it's I don't know if you may be interested or may not, and the browser has been configured to preload the card or have everything ready for the user to see. You will see a lot of these extra requests or unneeded that will overload the system.
So
And
here's what I see when I get a cart preload pattern. It's not just that the cart preloads, but on every single page when you go through, there's a check-in with the cart system. So
Mhm.
you go to the next page, and let's say you're looking just at a product page. It checks in and makes sure that there's no updates to the cart, number of items, things of that nature. And so you have all of this behavior going on inside of the system, which is not revenue related. And when you
Yeah.
do finally make a request, now you are competing as a revenue generating user for resources with all these other people who are not generating revenue. And they are the dominant number of queries in the system. So I mentioned
Mhm.
that e-commerce provider earlier, that e-commerce top 50 provider, that when they switch from a default cart to a just-in-time cart, their revenue went up about $10 million a month. What also happened when they switched from a just-in-time or to a just-in-time cart from a default cart is the number of requests to the cart system dropped by 97%. And to the end
Oh,
user, the experience did not change at all.
there are
There,
some
there,
elements that I understand that are placed there for the users, like to be comfortable there or be in a speedier site. But at times it can backfire in ways that you don't notice. As you said, probably the card didn't need it to be preloaded or be stored. It's like this dilemma, right? When we decide what to cache and for how long, what is important, what is not. And it is a pattern that one of these settings that just a quick example, some organization trying to optimize, define some elements in the page to be cached, even some of them for a month. And that was a big mistake on the other side. Probably the performance was great because the site was not getting all the requests that usually did.
yep.
But some of these things really needed to be updated here and there. So it's an interesting balancing act as performance engineers to define and tell what is important, what is needed. As you say in that example, 97%. Of course, you made a huge improvement on the back end of the site, and you mentioned a big if here. If the users didn't get an impact that made no difference to them, yes, of course, do that. Yes, of course, optimize the site to be more efficient from the backend perspective, and if it doesn't make a big difference for the users, please do it. But some other times, I highly recommend be careful with this because sometimes you may be balancing on the other way, and the user may experience some loading time when they are actually trying to access the card. So it's an interesting art here to define where to optimize this and how much to optimize it for both sides, because you want to care for the backend side of your solution. You want to make it as efficient and not to waste resources. Nowadays, every API request that comes in costs. I mean, your cloud credits and everything. You want to optimize that, but at the same time, if you're cheap with your backend resources, your user may be impacted by it. So that's a performance engineer. Sometimes I think of us as artists, our cooks, that we have to like, if I remove here the preloading of the cards, it will taste slightly spicier, but I'm Mexican, probably it's too spicy for everybody else. So could not been that far, shouldn't have been pushed that far. It's always interesting to get it in the right middle spot. What do you think, amigo?
So my rule of thumb in that case is if 50% plus one are going to use an object, go ahead and pre-allocate it. If it's than 50%, allocate it just in time. It's a simple
Yeah.
rule, because that way, if it's 50% plus one, it's a reasonable assumption to incur the cost right up front.
Mhm.
When it's 50% minus one, it's more efficient to not incur the cost.
Yeah. And I would add as well, there are some of this, when you mentioned this card being able to be loaded instantly and the user gets no problem, and they are not calling it that often, it's not generating too much load. Maybe just make it just live as soon as they access it for them to request the information be live, not pre-cached. But if it's something that might generate quite an impact or it's a heavy process, I don't know, I'm going to give a wild example, AI generating a video. Well, that you may want to balance, if because it has to be generated live, but
Yep.
how much are you going to allocate? There are several decision points where you have to take. I like yours. More than 50% of your users are going to go through it. I would say put some brain power into how are you going to optimize it for both sides, backend and the user. Which is better, which is going to be best, and keep playing around that, because once you set one thing, you may say like, yeah, it went perfect. I thought that as a Mexican, this was spicy enough, and everybody suddenly starts throwing fire through the mouth. And I'm like, what's wrong with you guys? Can you take that? And keep checking.
So Leandro, I think we're approaching the bottom of the hour. I think now is a good time for about a 10-minute break. What we'll do is we'll break. That'll give me a chance to take the puppy out and see if we can find some new crashes to chat about online. If you can stick around, that would be fantastic.
Sadly, I have some salsas to take a look at, so I don't think I'm gonna come back for the following hours.
Okay.
But I'm sure that you're going to find lots of examples, lots of situations that have happened, are happening right now, and happened through the year, like Cloudflare or some of the AWS out times that were during the year. There's so much to talk today. So everybody tuning in, you'll have lots of fun with this Black Friday special, but that's going to be for me for today.
Leandro, thank you for stopping by. And by the way, one of our other sponsors is Journeyman Publishing, and I'll be pushing your book in the next segment.
Oh, thank you so much, amigo. I hope that everybody gets a lot of benefit from the book. It's traditional load testing, but it's still very important and relevant. And this day is showing that the importance, not continuous performance and only observability. Load testing is important. Taylor Swift, our saint patron of load testing nowadays, proves that. So check it out.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. We'll just leave the link live here. If you want to just stick on, I'll see you then.
Thank you, amigo. Thank you, everybody. And take care.
Bye.
Adios.
one of the people messaging me about orchestra tickets, yes, they're on sale. The site did crash because of high traffic today. But I think they'll be able to sort it out in the next few minutes. So hang tight. Also, the site crashed because of high traffic. Thanks.
This call may be recorded. If you are calling for assistance with your unemployment insurance or your COVID-19 claim, please press 1 now. Thank you for calling the Unemployment Insurance Helpline. This call may be recorded. Please wait while we try to transfer you into the wait queue. Due to high volume, we were not able to add you to the queue. You will need to try your call again later. Thank you for calling. Goodbye.
Hi, everybody. It's your old friend Satan here again. You know, it's such an honor to be introducing my favorite podcast on all the hot, new, high-tech innovations in worldwide evil doing. Seriously, whether it's websites crashing, screwed up load balancers, or messed up routing topologies, you know James will cover it all on the next edition of The News of the Damned.
Can you dig it?
Listen to those end users screaming. They can't buy the latest hot item on sale this holiday season. They're so upset and they're mad at Larry, who, of course, who's misconfigured the website, and now it's gone down and they can't buy it at all. What are they going to do with their money? They're going to take their dollars and they're going to go someplace else to buy another hot item. And that, in essence, is why a site outage for a commercial provider, someone who's selling something, is so expensive. Not only do they lose the current sale, but they also lose further sales. The opportunity cost is huge. Statistics tell us that 4 in 5 users, when they experience a website outage or slowness, they're going to leave the site and they're not going to come back until all other opportunities have been exhausted. And you can look at your own behavior for this. You go to a website, you want to buy something, widget X or book X or something of that nature. And either you can't find it, or the site is so slow and frustrating, you just leave it and you go to another place that sells the same widget or the same book and you buy it there. And you'll continue to go there until that site messes up. And then you'll go to a third site and eventually you'll make your way back to the original site. That is what we're trying to avoid. We want the customer to be satisfied, have a natural journey through the site, that they're not frustrated that they leave, because when they leave, that becomes the new expense. Robin Haynes is saying slow is the new down. That is absolutely true. And we should talk about, what does slow mean? There are all sorts of different ways of defining slow, excuse me, on a website. But for me, it is the relationship between when the site is available for input and when the user wants to interact with the site. Those two things, if they happen in the right order, that is, the site becomes available before the person wants to use it, that results in what's called customer delight. You have a natural experience on the website and you're moving through the site, you're unimpaired. You may not buy on that site visit, but you're not frustrated in a way that you abnormally terminate your session and you leave. The inverse relationship of that is, I want to use the site and the site is not available. And that results in the most common experience in all of information technology, which is the million mouse click of death. You sit there and you tap on that mouse and you continue tapping on the mouse and you're waiting for the site to come back and it's not coming back and you're getting frustrated. Oh, time to go to another site. This is the IT equivalent of the person continuing to hit the button in the elevator, trying to get the elevator to arrive faster or or something of that nature. It's a human nature item, but it turns out that really is the most common experience in all of IT. There was a survey done in the United Kingdom a number of years ago, and it asked employees what were the most common barriers to success in organizations. And the most common barrier was slow software. It cost everybody in an organization about 27 minutes a day in lost productivity. So you can see that if I've got, say, 16 people in an organization, I'm losing almost a person day or a man day of productivity just because of slow software. It also encourages high employee turnover. As an employee, if I'm being asked to deliver on a mission to do something and the software I have does not support it, but I'm not being evaluated in the end on the performance of the software, I'm being evaluated on the performance of me, and the software is a barrier, I will leave. That employee turnover is a very high cost to an organization. So you can see how slow software or down software has cascading effects across an organization. We talked in the last hour with Leandro and Heinrich about this issue of exploding cost on the back end, depending upon when you allocate a resource to a user and how expensive that is. And we also talked about the relationship of how this impacts user conversion rates, how these tethers to large backend resource pools can slow down conversion rates. And so you have this issue of inefficient software not only is more expensive to run, but it also impacts revenue. And before we go much further, I do want to thank all of our sponsors for this year's show. We'll start with Journeyman Publishing, which is also the home of PerfBytes Press. For more information, you can go to journeymanpublishing.com. There are books there by myself, by Leandro, by Mike Gable, and you'll find a wide variety of items there. Also, if you have a small publication, either for your company or for your family, someone's done a biography, genealogical research, and you want that published, Journeyman Publishing specializes in these small run publications. It can make you look just like you came off of, the big publishers. We use the same tools that they do as well. Looks like we have Brian Cole of Tricentis in the room. So let's see if we can add him to the conversation. Mr. Cole, welcome.
Nope.
Brian?
Yeah. Oh, you can't hear me?
And I can hear you. You sound like you're a little from the microphone.
I sure do. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
This is kind of half technology, half Three Stooges. So we watch for Curly to slip on the banana peel, and then we go and we take our engineering measurements on the banana peel and understand why that happened.
Yep. The classic reactive approach to a performance issue.
Exactly. But we also want to make it a learning experience and draw the patterns from it so that individuals can self-solve or recognize these patterns going forward and not have to experience that slip and fall incident.
And what you're talking about here is actually a broader issue that applies to the entirety of QA organizations that I've interacted with over many decades, which is if there's an incident in production, this is a real learning opportunity to figure out, okay, we clearly missed something, but all too often what I see is we identify the problem, we do a bunch of remediation, it runs through dev creates a fix, and that gets deployed into production, but there was no dedicated analysis cycle of what exactly took place, what test did we not have that would have caught this, and how do we build that test and include it in all future regressions going forward. And anybody
who has solved that issue, the security industry is very good at taking those exploits and code problems and things of that nature and moving it back into every time we submit code, we check against this.
And this is part of something that security has, which is the whole CVE system, right? That documentation of a vulnerability that's published isn't something that exists in the general quality assurance space. It's a very specific security thing, and every vendor building security software can adjudicate against that. And that gives them sort of an advantage that isn't necessarily replicable on a quality assurance perspective, because every application is its own special snowflake that requires its own unique sorts of tests.
Well, we in the performance universe are kind of in the same family as the security group people. We're both redheaded stepchildren. You would think that we could learn a little bit from the security side of the house and employ some of those best practices, but we're also a little bit like cats in our industry in the performance space. It's hard to herd all the vendors and VARs and users together in one group and get them to do anything.
And I like the analogy for a lot of detailed reasons, in that if performance engineers are cats, cats are an outstanding organism. They will routinely look at something and go, yeah, that's only 8 times my height. I can make that. And they'll just leap up to it. Like they're extremely competent, but getting them to actually engage on a task does take a lot more work than you might think. And this is because the definition of that task is usually so poorly defined. One of the things that I tell people is, if you want to build a performance engineering practice in your organization, I work at a vendor, I'm pitching for Neoload, I'm trying to sell you software. The first thing I tell you is, don't buy anything. Just go to your backlog and add performance related either user stories or tasks associated with the user story. However you're managing it, just do that. Nothing else. And then step back and watch what happens. And you'll be amazed at the genesis of a performance engineering practice that begins to occur as a result of just putting that as something that needs to be done in order to satisfy the agile definition of done. We're done with this sprint. We're done with this particular user story. You can't finish it unless you do the tests, because you put it in there.
That is so true for the better part of, I guess, 3 or 4 decades.
Yep.
In the absence of that, you have either a whole bunch of people making different decisions on what performance means, from architecture to development to platform engineering. And then we run a performance test against maybe requirements they did not have, or most likely did not have, because we've gone and recovered them. And then we get a result that says not performant. And this is what I call the ugly baby problem. We show up and we say, your baby is ugly. And the developers, their paternal, maternal instincts kick in and say, my code baby is not ugly. You need glasses.
Well,
the equivalent of, you have the wrong requirements.
Right. And I think a large part of that is due to timing. So specifically, if I am a developer and I write some code and I check that code in, and then 4 weeks later, here comes Mr. James Pulley telling me that my code is not performant and doesn't scale well, or that there's otherwise a problem with it, I am inherently extremely irritated by this. But if you had told me the exact same information that afternoon after I did my code check-in, I do not have this negative response. I am, in fact, quite grateful that you are bringing up issues in sprint where they could be properly addressed in sprint. And this timing delay leads to a lot of frustration from a development organization, because the developers moved on. They completed the task, they marked it as done, they moved on to the next thing. And indeed, in a lot of cases, what I've seen is the sprint closed, as did the next sprint. And now we're telling you in the middle of, sprint 17, by the way, we found a problem. You need to blow up all of the sprint planning you've done, derail all of the work for sprint 17, and go back and try and address an issue that is poorly understood, not well documented, and maybe a little cryptic, and we're not exactly sure where it is. And it might be you and it might not. But anyway, off you go. And that's an extremely frustrating part of the feedback cycle that I see, that it can be addressed, but it does take kind of institutional change to begin to put that process in place.
You're right. It's very hard to do that. And similarly, if they ship a product, let's say it does escape through performance testing for whatever reason and make it to production, and then you find an issue there, then it's an all hands on deck. And there's no amount of speed that is available that can solve the problem fast enough.
Yep. It's the classic graph that everybody in quality assurance has seen at one point in their life or another. The cost to fix a defect in requirements is tiny. The cost to fix it in production is enormous. And there's that increasing scale as you go through all your different life cycle gates. That's still going to be true. I would love to say that a dedicated quality assurance practice will catch everything. In fact, we've had a very recent example of a dedicated QA practice that caught every single thing and led to complete success. And that was the James Webb Space Telescope. And what they did at NASA was they tested everything relentlessly over and over again to make sure that it worked. And they took a lot of heat for that. The media constantly saying, oh, James Webb delayed again. It was supposed to launch in 2012, then 2014, then 2015, then 2017, then 2018, then 2020. Like it went on and on and on. And they were billions of dollars over budget right up until it worked, at which point everybody was amazed and all the hand clapping, whatever else. Nobody does that because the consequences of failure don't exist at that scale for everybody else on Earth.
Well, that they also had the issue of one of their previous telescopes. They had to go up and put a pair of glasses on too.
It's a great story about how a fleck of paint can ruin your day. Yep.
Yeah. And there's also an interesting story from Microsoft about the genesis of Exchange. We take Exchange for granted these days for email, but it was about 5 years late. And the reason for that really had to do with requirements. Outlook was being developed by one team. Exchange was being developed by another. They were two moving targets, and they both had to come together, but they didn't have a common product owner who would say, you have to freeze in order for this to sync up. And that resulted in delay after delay after delay until they addressed that product ownership issue of putting it under one product owner and said, Outlook, you will freeze, and allow Exchange to catch up. And then they were able to ship.
It's a classic problem that's only gotten worse. As we look at a modern IT landscape, people will say, well, we make a code change and then we deploy that change so that we can then test to see if that change did anything. But that's almost a nonsensical statement these days, because that application that you've modified is also integrated to 17 other things in your IT landscape, including, among other things, your SAP system, your mainframe environment, third-party web services, the shipping provider services from people like FedEx or UPS. It goes on and on and on, and you can't just stand up a copy of an application for testing purposes. So there's quite a lot of contextual issues that come from this challenge that a lot of QA teams are facing.
And then you add in the issue of SaaS, where the contracts themselves only list uptime, they don't list response time.
And you raise another really important point, and to reinforce it for everybody on the call who might be listening to this, if you're using a software as a service platform, something like Salesforce, for example, read that contract before you start running a load test, because the only difference between a load test and a distributed denial of service attack is you tell people you're running a load test. And you really don't want to get in trouble contractually with your SaaS providers, because they can essentially say breach of contract and terminate it or throttle it or do something very nasty to you as a result of you breaking the rules of the road. So definitely read those contracts. There's a lot of requirements and need to test these SaaS platforms, and those providers all have mechanisms that they'll use to help you do that won't jeopardize their multi-tenant system. Because the reason they don't want you to run that test is if you degrade their environment through running a large-scale performance test, you might not be degrading just your environment. You might be degrading other customers they have that are using shared infrastructure components.
And if you have a whole team full of people that have not benefited from training or mentoring, you might actually be creating a denial of services attack with no think time, no pacing,
Yep.
all sorts of practices which will cause issues. Now, I will want to give a shout out to one SaaS vendor who has really embraced service level agreements for response time, for scalability, and that is Guidewire. Guidewire sits at the heart of a lot of insurance operations, that are time critical for quoting policies and things of that nature. And Guidewire has really embraced the concept of response time SLAs. I can't think of any other vendor that has. And then you have situations like SAP, which is kind of forcing people to go to a SaaS model with their next major release. And all they respect is uptime in that case.
Yep. And in a lot of cases, this is also guidance that I give to people if they're looking to onboard a SaaS platform, some sort of software package they want to use. See if you can't tell the vendor, yeah, we want to have not just uptime, but also availability and response time metrics as part of this. I don't care if your system's up if I can't access it. And I don't care if the system's up and accessible if it takes 18 seconds to log in. I really want this to be a good experience for my end users. That goes to the larger problem of what is the value of a highly performant system. And a lot of business owners don't necessarily see that or understand the financial implications of it. There are certainly some that do, but generally speaking, if I have to choose between getting the software functionally accurate in that it generates the text codes properly, will properly ship the right object to the person who ordered it, will correctly mark somebody's time off through the payroll system, whatever it is that you're trying to test for, getting that functionally accurate absolutely takes precedence over any other considerations.
So before you joined, Brian, I was talking about a survey that was done in the UK several years ago about the impacts on users inside of an organization. What was the most frustrating items to them? And slow software was near the top of the list, and it was costing every user in the organization about 27 minutes a day. But there's a whole bunch of ancillary costs associated with that. If you're being asked to deliver on a mission using a piece of software and that software doesn't support it, your manager is not going to evaluate the success of the software. They're going to evaluate the success of you. So that leads actually to higher employee turnover. It leads to higher costs. There's all sorts of other items. I like to pick on time card and expense reporting systems, since those tend to be fairly slow for whatever reason as a genre. And if your expense reporting system is slow, people don't put in their expenses until the end of the quarter. And that imposes cash flow issues where you have this big block of cash that you need to have sitting out there. So there are all sorts of operational issues that impact an organization for slow software. It is the most common experience in all of IT to sit there and million mouse click of death on that because it's just non-responsive.
One of my favorite expressions about this was, and I can't remember the source. If anybody knows, I would love to hear it. But the software can be ugly and difficult to use, and your users will use it and hate you every day. But if it's slow, they won't use it.
Yeah,
it's really this perception issue that we as human beings all face as well. There is a great story that I had many years ago. I was helping a financial organization build a new teller application for their, the frontline bank employees. They tested the old system, got the baseline metrics, tested the new system, compared it to the baseline. We did everything right, with their quotation marks around the word right back in the day, rolled it out, and then the complaints started coming in. Friday at lunch, the system is slow. Well, when we had our initial panic reaction and looked and couldn't find any issues, we started looking at telemetry data from production. What we found out was Tuesday afternoon, depositing a check took 3 seconds. Thursday morning, it took 3 seconds. Friday at noon, it took 3 seconds. But that 3 seconds felt longer to the frontline employees when there was a line of people out the door compared to Thursday afternoon when there was no line.
Yeah.
And this is the big problem in the performance engineering world, which is if you rely on vibes or feelings or opinions, you're almost dooming yourself to failure. You have to have data to support that. And the problem that we did wrong basically back then was we didn't publish that performance data to the end user community. We didn't show them, here's the old system and how long it took to do things. Here's the new system, and look, it is 3% faster. You won't really notice that, but trust us, we have data to prove that it's just as good as the old system. And that could have prevented a lot of those types of things. There was a humorous story that I read about a insurance company in, I think, the UK, who were sending out checks to people when they made insurance claims. And everybody was upset that it was taking so long to get that. So they were investing in, well, how do we improve our systems? How do we improve the process, whatever? And this consultant came in and said, no, you're thinking about this wrong. How long does it take you to get a check out? And they're like, yeah, usually 8 days, maybe 9, maybe 7. Great. When you say we've accepted your claim and you can expect your check, tell them you can expect your check within 14 days. And all of the complaints to their call center vanished overnight because people were now thrilled they were getting it in 8 days because expectations had been set. And this is the psychological aspect of performance engineering that is not often talked about or well understood, but managing expectations, managing that perception issues that human beings face is a really big part of being a talented performance engineer.
I can't argue with any of what you just said. Let's take the opportunity now to look at something that is failing today and see what lessons we might be able to learn from this particular item. I have up on the stream here a site for Kevin Bridges. I noticed that it failed in production today, and it's a ticketing site. And looking at what's going on here, we see a common pattern occurring over and over again, which is this issue of pre-allocation of resources, this cart preload issue. So we get this, I'm loading up a bunch of users, I have a finite resource pool, and then boom, I simply run out of resources. Site goes into vapor lock, and until the resources are released, we can't do anything. And this is a common practice, which is we are allocating a cart to everyone who shows up. And I think it's just a bad practice. If it's not 50% plus one, we shouldn't be handing it out. But how do we track that? This is not something that shows up in a traditional analysis for a performance test using NeoLoad or LoadRunner or JMeter or anything like that. Is, if it's performing acceptably well, on a response on going to get the cart object, no one is going to flag this. And I'm wondering if we need to make changes in how we do analysis to, as soon as we get a recording, actually analyze the recording for patterns for a single user.
It's a really big challenge. And many years ago, I remember talking to, I believe it was eBay, and they were using databases in their backend. And the databases come with two different kinds of license. There's a license for read, and there's a license for read-write. And they had everything deployed as read-write because they didn't know. What they found out was they could save literally millions, tens of millions of dollars per year by implementing read databases and only flipping people over to read-write when they needed to add something to their cart and go through the checkout process. Otherwise, why are we giving them this full-fledged system and all of these resources and these expensive licenses when they're not going to leverage any of that capability? And that's what you're talking about here. This is not something that is part of the classic domain of performance engineering. People don't think about this in terms of, I got this application, I'm expected to test, I record my first user path. Let me actually look at what resources are being allocated and whether those are necessary or not. That's usually the domain of like the business analysts and the development teams who are going to be looking at that kind of stuff. I, as a performance engineer, was given test this system, and I would say, okay, and off I would go. And this is a new axis of driving the value of, I want to provide a highly performant, highly scalable, well-optimized system into production. Now I can couch it, if I'm doing this type of analysis, in terms of things like, I can help reduce our cloud spend, our OpEx cash flow going out. I can begin to address that through a performance engineering practice where I begin to analyze, when are we allocating resources? Were those resources even required?
So looking at an initial recording, we have all the headers, we have all the page contents. We can tell, for instance, if a session loads a common style sheet more than once, and from the cache headers, if it's actually been marked as cacheable, or if I have to constantly go back and get it.
Do I see blank.gif or spacer.gif? I mean, there's so many little things that can be optimized out just through much more modern kind of website design practices and standards. The legacy things that we see tend to show up in a lot of development organizations don't have this kind of performance feedback. So they've never had to think about it in these terms before. And as soon as this feedback starts rolling in, they begin to realize, oh yeah, I guess I don't need to give them a cart until they click into the checkout process or add something to it. Then all of a sudden they're being exposed to a new kind of thought process and beginning to interact with it and drive better development practice, better application design practices.
So, Brian, it looks like we have another guest who has shown up, and I'd like to introduce someone who is really difficult to introduce because most of us know his name. It's Mr. Dennis Hayes, a member of the Computer Industry Hall of Fame, inventor of the consumer modem, and someone who I've been privileged to get to know over the last couple of years. Dennis, I know I can't really do your history justice. If you would like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Well, hi, James. It's good to be with you this morning. I, I guess when Douglas Kim at Kim Leahy Killow Intellectual Property Attorneys in Greenville asked me what I thought about changing the world, I told him we had some fun. And he likes to quote that in public from time to time. We worked hard, we had fun, but most of all, what I'm proud of what we did with the modem company was it was the kind of place that people like to work. And I run into former associates from time to time, and they tell me it was still the best place they'd ever worked. So that's, as much as anything else, that's what I'm proud of accomplishing during the 1980s and 1990s. I guess the last 2 decades of the last century.
So Dennis, you are chairman of two organizations that are sponsors of today's show, the American Technology Venture Lab and Spartans First. Since you are here, please tell us about those two organizations and why you're supporting PerfBytes News of the Damned on Black Friday.
Well, to start with, the thing about Spartans First is back around 2020, just as the COVID epidemic was cranking up and getting started, people were beginning to realize there was something going on that was kind of scary. There was also the defund the police movement going on, and in talking to several of my friends, we decided to start a nonprofit to let our law enforcement and first responders know that we cared about them. First of all, I'd had a lot of my family, two of my dad's older brothers had been with the Spartanburg Police Force. My mother's older brother had been the policeman in Packlet, South Carolina. My grandfather had been a county constable, and several of my cousins are either married to or are in law enforcement in South Carolina.
And
So
in fact,
so
one of those cousins is directly across the farm pond from where me and Rachel live.
right, it's right next door to you,
Yeah.
and I think that one's in the sheriff's department. There's another one who just was closer but's moved a little further away from you that was with the highway patrol in South Carolina. And so we care about them, and they're so important to the prosperity that, having a stable, safe environment is very important for prosperity, because business thrives where there's freedom and where there's safety. And so law enforcement is very important to maintain the safe environment, as we've seen in recent activities in some of the cities, that there's a lot more economic activity when the environment is safer than when people believe it's dangerous to go out. And then the original organization was called Spartanburg Supports Law Enforcement and First Responders, which was a terrible long name. So we shortened that to Spartans First. And over time, we expanded our scope to include support for innovation and entrepreneurship, and support for technologies that enhance the environment for visually impaired and other handicapped individuals. Not everyone knows that I've gone blind over the last 35 or so years. It turns out that I inherited retinitis pigmentosa from my mother's side of the family, and did not know that till I was in my mid 30s, and gradually went blind over the next 35 years. And so it's become important to me to do things, and technology with augmented reality is a way to address that. And I'll come back and talk about what we're doing with that in a minute. But the other organization that we started in 2023 is called the American Technology Venture Lab. And the American Technology Venture Lab is only one of two organizations that I'm aware of that offers an objectives-based mentoring and educational program for early stage science and technology-based ventures. The other is called the Creative Destruction Lab, that comes out of Toronto, Canada. And I participated in the Creative Destruction Lab program at the Scheller College of Business at Georgia Tech from 2020 through 2023. And when they lost their sponsor for the commerce stream that was operating at Georgia Tech, with the encouragement of several friends around Spartanburg, we decided to start a program here. And we set the company up in 2023. We got in touch with the new dean, Jeffrey Stinson, at the USC Upstate George Dean Johnson Jr. College of Business and Economics. And we work with them to use their facility. And we have a few of the professors that have participated as subject matter experts, and we hire interns, some from USC Upstate. We've had a few from other colleges, and we've had some participation from both Georgia Tech and Wofford College, that's in Spartanburg, and we've had an intern from Converse College. So we're mostly driven by volunteer efforts on the part of our staff that are not students, and on part of our mentors. And when the ventures come into the program, we don't charge them anything for it, and we don't take any equity in their business, and we don't make an investment, but we provide them a program that helps them get ready to scale their company. And sometimes they're looking to prepare for raising venture capital. We're looking for businesses that are not just the idea that was drawn on the napkin last night at the pub. They're a little too early, but if they're working on their
So
prototype,
we're looking for people that are beyond the walk into a pitch session in Silicon Valley with an idea that they came off of the news broadcast last night.
exactly, yeah, that they're a little further along. They don't have to have a working prototype, but they
Looks
have to
like
be
we might have
working.
lost Dennis on some audio front there. So Brian, let's go back to you on looking at this Kevin Bridges site, and you've certainly been watching what's going on this morning. Have you seen any sites that have gone down?
Unfortunately, it's like a relatively constant trickle of things that are coming in. And I'm less interested in the ones where there's a system crash and the site goes down. I mean, that's bad, not great, but that's usually a much more large scale, obvious, oh, look, the forest fire is bad sort of analysis. I like to look at the more subtle indicators. One of the ones that triggered me to have some new thoughts about it was the Logan Paul Mike Tyson fight on Netflix. So
It looks like I've lost audio potentially on Dennis and
interesting.
Brian.
Can you not hear me?
Please give me a thumbs up in the comments if you can hear me.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Dennis.
Hello, James. Hello, James.
Side.
Dennis, Brian?
Yep.
Hello, James. Hello. Can you hear me?
I can.
Who's that?
This is Brian Cole.
Brian, you and I seem to be in the same space. Are we not connected to the show?
No, it's we're definitely in the show, and I imagine everybody else can hear us.
But I can't hear James anymore.
I can't hear James either. Yep.
How do we fix that?
Wait for James to do something. It's out of our hands, unfortunately.
Can you let him know we're sitting here and we can hear each other?
I put some stuff in the private chat.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, part of what James wanted us to talk about, just in case, and hopefully if anybody else is on the line, you can just let us know in the chat that you can hear us at least. The kind of endemic problem with performance engineering. And one of the issues is, where do we draw the line at what is acceptable? So the Logan Tyson fight on Netflix experienced 0.14% of their user community reporting issues with the streaming service. And that made the news, which is what I found interesting for a number of different reasons. One was that is a very tiny percentage of the user community. So I don't know what the metrics that Netflix has around that are in terms of people who complain who were experiencing an issue and other people who were experiencing an issue who didn't complain or didn't think to call in and were just frustrated, and what that might mean in terms of the scale of the impact.
Well,
But
1% of a large number can be hundreds or thousands of people.
that was about 65,000 people, that 0.14%. But what I found interesting was that it was such a tiny number, and most people didn't really think about it. They had a great experience, and yet it made the news, and yet it caused, at the time, the NFL to go, "Hey, Netflix, you signed up to stream NFL games. Are you actually ready for this? If this issue is occurring on this other live stream that you're doing." That is this ripple effect of good performance. And what it told me is, essentially, if you're going to do performance engineering, get out of here with your 50% average. If you're not talking 90th, 95th percentile data sets, then it stops kind of mattering. I don't care if 50% of the people would have a good experience. What about that 90, 95, 99.86% of your user community having a good experience? And even then, is that not enough to keep you out of the news? It's one of the great truisms in performance. Great performance never makes the news, but mediocre to poor performance or system crashes does make the news, and never in a good way. So how you avoid that is kind of changing your definition of success, and it's evolving as part of the demographic shift that's occurring in generally IT and compute more broadly beyond that, which is there are entire new hires coming into the workforce today who have never lived in a world without internet access, who have grown up using systems like Gmail, which is fast, responsive, well-designed, never seems to go down. And then they walk into the corporate IT world and they're like, what is this stuff? And this is, it's always fascinating to me. Every time I make a dentist appointment, I can kind of see the screen and I'm looking at it like, was this built in 1983? What is this software you're using?
Well, it's every
wild.
time. It's every time that I make an appointment with my doctor.
Yep.
The person on the other end says, "Well, pardon me, but the computer's slow today." And my response is, "The computer's slow every time I schedule an appointment."
Yeah. Is it the scheduling system at this point? And it's fascinating how people are in the performance engineering community are still thinking about average, when I feel like average is not your friend, and reporting average response times is going to land you in hot water when you deploy systems into production and the above average data sets start coming in and people start complaining. You said it would respond within 3 seconds. It's taking me 5-6 seconds to log in. What's up?
Well, and the thing that impacts e-commerce is when you get into delays placing the order, the abandoned cart problem is lost revenue.
Absolutely. Amazon did a study in 2006, I want to say, where they found that every 100 milliseconds of latency in the checkout process could be directly equated to a 1% decline in revenue. And in 2006 numbers, that was $230 million or something ridiculous. Nobody else really operates at that scale. But the metric is interesting because 100 milliseconds of delay is roughly how long your eye is closed while you blink. So when we talk about optimizing a system and engineering it to perform better and kind of reducing the time that it spends, we're often not talking about massive numbers here to have a noticeable impact on those customer-facing systems in the bottom line. So yes, I agree with some of the comments, right? 90th percentile response time, at least, is what I would recommend people report on. Go 95 or even higher. You may have some technology limitations on some of this stuff, but that statistical analysis, you want to make sure that what you're doing is going to work in a way that will not cause the downstream ripple effects on your support teams, where all of those end users are going to start calling and complaining about the system being too slow. This is one of those unintended consequences of not having a well-optimized system, is how much you spend in your support org, how long everybody spends on the phone. There's also like a customer perception, customer satisfaction element to this as well. The example I use here is whenever I need to call my cable company. Because if I'm calling my cable company, I'm already in such a good mood because something's clearly wrong. And they ask me a bunch of questions to confirm my identity. And then they say, well, let me just pull up your account details. And then there's what, like 7 seconds of awkward silence? I mean, I'm already in a fabulous mindset as we are going through this. What is the benefit to the business, not just in terms of how many more calls a call center could process if that went from 7 seconds down to 5 seconds, but what does that do to the customer on the other end who doesn't have to wait as long? There are these unintended, very hard to document ripple effects of what good performance actually does for an enterprise.
Well, not only that, Brian, but
I feel like James tried to rejoin the chat and then
I just lost James, Sharon.
you've got the issue of people saying on the phone, "Pardon me," while my system is slow.
Yep, a constant feedback, right? And it's I want to help you, but I can't because the software isn't letting me. Whoa, interesting.
I sometimes tell them we know how to fix that.
I would love to say that generally the industry is improving over time. I really would, but it does seem like the same problems keep coming up in the same context. Individual organizations might begin to elevate their game, but what is happening is those extremely talented team members may at some point leave, and then the practice begins to devolve back down. So I see it like a pendulum swing between we have a really good practice in place, and then it kind of swings back to, yeah, we're spending a lot of money, and what are we actually getting? We don't actually see any outcomes because none of the people experiencing that 1 second response time on that 3 second SLA are calling to say, yeah, this was great. It was so much faster than I thought it was. This made me more effective. Nobody talks about good performance. They only talk about bad performance. So there's this natural tendency that as the number of complaints about poor performance go down through the implementation of a good performance testing practice, you find that the impetus or the business pressure to provide a performance testing practice begins to go away because they're not feeling any pain from it. And that pendulum then begins to swing back as you didn't fund it enough, as you didn't prioritize it as part of the workload. And then all of a sudden you have performance issues, and now we have to, it's an initial crisis because production's experiencing an issue. And then we look back and we're like, okay, how do we stop this from ever happening again? And the pendulum begins to swing the other way.
Well, part of what I see as the problem is that when accountants end up running the business, they look at what are we spending money on and why are we spending money on performance engineering if we don't have a problem?
Yep.
Well, the reason we're spending money is so we don't have the problem.
Exactly. It's like saying when I walk to my car, my eyes will track over at least the wheels that I can see on one side of the car, just as a basic level of QA. When I leave my house, I lock the door, and I almost always try to open the door to make sure that it locked properly, right? We do QA all the time. To cut some of that stuff out is to introduce an awful lot of risk. And that is the definition of hope as a strategy, right? It's don't put all of the things at high risk and hope that things won't go bad. Generally, when they do go bad, it's sort of a statistical inevitability, not a random chance event. And when it goes bad, you don't usually have any good policies or practices in place to manage that crisis other than an all hands on deck disaster emergency. Let's pull everybody into a room and try and figure out how to address this problem.
Now, the problem we have with performance engineering is similar to the way it was, 10 or 15 years ago with cybersecurity, was that not everybody knew enough about it to know to make it important. And as a result, a lot of your managers that are not really technical, or even some of your technical or or software development managers don't know to make it important.
Yep.
There was a time when memory is going to be cheap. We don't have to be efficient with software. Let's just get it up and running, and we can be sloppy. It's not, the early days when you had 16K of memory and you had to figure out how to make the program run in a small space, you had to learn how to be efficient and write tight code. The theory about interpreters like Python or even BASIC was that you can be sloppy and memory's going to be cheap, so it doesn't really matter. And the problem is time is not cheap. Time never became cheap. Time actually became more expensive, and particularly time of the customer when the customer gets frustrated by the response of the system. And that needs to be included in all software development training, is that yes, the memory got cheaper, the processors got faster, the cloud resources got more plentiful, but time didn't get time. The situation with time did not get better; it got worse. So we have to take more account of how we're using the customer's time.
I even remember when this happened with mobile, because you're exactly right. People got lazy. It's well, I could inspect the return to see how big it is and allocate just enough memory to hold that, or, and hear me out, I could just allocate 2 million bytes because no matter what it is, it'll fit in that. And then the mobile platforms arrived, and all of the sudden, all of those skills that had been kind of set aside in the name of convenience and velocity for development
Yep.
suddenly blew up in everybody's face. And how do we run now on these very small platforms that have these restricted CPUs and restricted memory sets? And that pendulum swung back again. And it's this endemic back and forth that I've seen over the years of, we're getting better at something and then we don't realize it. And to your point, the one constant here is the time taken. And this plays into that demographic shift. If you'd asked me in the year 2000, how long am I going to wait for a website before I start to get irritated? It was 15 seconds. In 2010, it was 8 seconds. In 2020, it was 2 seconds. This trend is going to continue more and more, where we are increasingly exposed to high grade enterprise systems from major vendors, Walmart, Amazon, others like that. And we expect a nearly instantaneous response.
And at the same time, the interaction is getting separated further away from the device I'm using because it's connected through more network.
Yep.
And the server may or may not even be in the same country. I mean, it's so you may be going through several levels of network to get to the actual data. So you're buffering and queuing, and where how you're getting the response to the customer becomes much more important than it used to be.
There was a great example of this. There was a bike sharing app in London, England, where you'd go in, you'd make a reservation, it would show you where your bike is on the map, you could go grab it, and off you go. And the system bogged down. And when they did a network analysis, what they found is the API call they were making to the third-party mapping service to retrieve the map was killing their system. It wasn't anything they had done. It was that third-party call. And to fix it, all they did was, you know what, let's just take an image of that and embed it in our application. Don't make the call. Just show them a picture of the map and put a pin on it, because the roads in London don't change that often. And that was the solution to the problem. But it's this spread of microservices and third-party systems. And you're exactly correct. You don't know where it is. If you're calling a mapping service and that mapping service API endpoint is in North America, you got to cross the Atlantic every single time you do that. And suddenly latency becomes a real thing, and you have to begin factoring that into your equation.
That's right. So it causes software developers to need to think about things they used to not have to think about.
And this is very much what I see as a trend. What is the difference increasingly between a junior software engineer and a senior software engineer? The senior software engineer has just seen more problems and knows how to think about the long-term consequences of things. How do I keep this code from coming back to me 4 weeks from now? Well, if I make it highly performant and scalable, then it won't do that. And that solves that problem. And I'm no longer irritated. Whereas the junior people they haven't had that kind of trial by fire to learn those skills.
Well, and when I talk to people at the different universities and colleges that are teaching, graduate level students or undergrad students, how does it get embedded into those classes so that it's appropriately brought to their attention at a time when it can influence their long-term thinking about the business they're getting into?
So I need to thank Brian and Dennis for filling in while I've been out. You'll notice I'm back as James 2.
Okay.
I actually had to join as a guest. It was very weird. We also have Carlos Chidiak, who's in the waiting room. Let's see if we can go ahead and add him.
Bring him in.
Carlos, please introduce yourself. Carlos is with one of our other sponsors, Perficuity, as a sponsor of the show and as a founder of that venture.
Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope you had some good food. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Carlos.
Hey, hi, Dennis. Hi, Brian. Hi, James.
James, if you don't mind, I'll make a mention that Perficuity is one of the ventures that's currently in the American Technology Venture Lab objectives-based mentoring program, and is I guess at having recently gotten started in that program and launching their business, I guess publicly today. We're happy to have you as part of the ATVL program.
Thank you, Dennis. And I joined late. I know you were talking earlier, Brian. I think you guys were talking about a couple of interesting things.
Well, if I can jump in, Carlos, I'd like to get you to talk a little bit about why Perficuity is different than a lot of performance engineering activities. From my perspective, what made me interested in having you join ATVL is the different kind of strategy, where it appears to me that most consultants providing performance engineering services at the end of their project give you a stack of data, and you've taken a different strategy. Would you explain that for all of us?
We're trying to approach it a little bit different. We're all coming from performance engineering, performance testing, and there's a lot of data in production that we'll be able to grasp and analyze and provide insight to what's going on in your network or on your systems before you having to run any tests, and provide you like a lot of insight, like a lot of issues that usually we face when we go and talk to a customer is how many users they have on the system. Usually they don't know, or they don't have what is going on at the time. And to build a plan for them usually takes a lot of questioning, asking, and going around within the organization to figure that out. Plus, we have to run the test. There's a lot of the environment set up, all these issues that come up to emulate what is going in production. We're coming with a different approach. We still need testing if it is an app that is not yet in production, or there's new things that are going to happen to the app. But before that, we will be able to grasp and grab all the data and the logs from production and be able to provide an analysis and insight to what's going on, what is impacting your application, and analyze based on
And in fact,
expertise.
compared
Go
with
ahead.
like a Dynatrace or a New Relic, there's no agent involved. It's all passive collection of data that's already in them. And I was particularly interested in the patent filing last week, which was about calculating the financial impact of poor performant code. Being able to say out of the bots in your system, they're costing you 22 cents off of every dollar of IT spend. Your CDN misconfiguration is costing you 15 cents for every dollar of IT spend. That seems a set of unique statistics that bridges FinOps and performance that is just not in the market right now.
Well, and the other thing that I liked about it was when you explained how instead of just giving me a bunch of data, you can tell me priorities for what I should change first to get the most impact on performance. What do I need to fix?
Exactly. And by the way, Perficuity has been providing some of our analysis tools during this PerfBytes News of the Day on Black Friday edition. We're previewing some things that are coming maybe 6 months down the line to take a look at how things are impacting performance. You can see their composite scoring here for Lighthouse, Rail Metrics, Souders rules, the number of agents. We don't often think about the number of agents in the header of the page and how they're impacting performance, and whether we're preloading items such as a cart, and even the HTTP protocol that's being used. Is it an older protocol like HTTP2 or HTTP1 that encourages higher load in this case? So Carlos, thank you for the lend of these tools for our session. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Dennis, I'm not sure if you covered it, but why is it important for you and ATVL and Spartans First to sponsor events like PerfBytes News of the Damned? And if you did cover it, I apologize while my audio was out. But
No, we were talking a little different subject at that point. There are basically two reasons. One, from a Spartans First perspective, we're offering a free 30-month pilot project for the Here to There service. And we want to get the word out to the technical community that that's available for any venue that would like to participate. I think we received a large donation of service packages, and we can equip your location with Bluetooth beacons, ultra wideband beacons, or outside with geopositioning, so that the free user app that you can download off of the App Store for the iPhone or for Android, you can use that app to get information or share information with the visually impaired, where their phone can read it to them, or for anyone to use who can pull it up on the app. We use that in places like restaurants or office buildings or a hospital or a hotel or city offices or government offices, where you can have a building directory, you can have a menu for what's in the cafeteria or the menu in the restaurant. You can use it to find the doors. So a blind person gives them a lot more independence and flexibility. If you think about a blind person going into a restaurant, you almost always have to either get somebody to read you the menu, or if you think about it and don't want to be a burden, you'll ask this waitress, well, what are the specials today? and settle for one of the specials if it's not terrible for you. But then if you can read the menu on your own, it gives you a lot more independence. So that's available, and the website spartansfirst.org has information about signing up for that.
So you click on, I think you click on the store link to go to that.
That's right. Yeah, the store has information. You can go directly to the store and request it. If you have a venue, we have a questionnaire to help you figure out how many beacons we need to send you, and it's all free. We only ask you to pay shipping for us to send them to you, and once you receive them, we'll get on the phone and help you with the installation. There's an installation app that works with it. It makes it somewhat easier, but we're happy to help you do that. If it's a larger venue like a hospital or a government building, we'll actually follow up, and if need be, we'll have someone come out and help you get the installation set up. We've learned a lot about what works well. Think about a blind person walking in the door of the bathroom. How do you find the facilities? Where's the sink? Where's the paper towels? Where's the soap? And that's the easy part, right? So that's why Spartans First is interested to get the word out, because the technical community can help us share that with the people in the facilities where you work. And from the perspective of the American Technology Venture Lab, we're getting the word out the best we can about our objectives-based mentoring program. Startup companies based on technology. We're agnostic to the technology. It can be computer, AI, robotics, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, logistics, any of that type of thing. It could be any kind of life sciences. It can be any kind of transportation or mobility, or any kind of materials or energy subjects. And so any kind of technology that's potentially protectable by intellectual property rights, or a business concept that's novel, that would change an industry. I like to say we're looking for unicorns and their cousins. If you're starting a hair salon, don't bother. It won't qualify. But if you're creating a new technology, has the potential to grow to be hundreds of millions of dollars of business, then we want to help you get ready to scale that business and be successful. And we operate throughout the region. We're not local just to Spartanburg. We operate throughout the region. We've had companies come from as far away as Virginia and Atlanta and Charleston.
I think one of the coolest sets of technology I saw was somebody using infrasound for medical diagnostic purposes.
Right.
Using the sound that the human body creates to understand the vascular infrastructure of the body and whether someone is at risk for complications related to that.
Yeah, part of the theory there is that if you have something obstructing your flow of the blood in your artery, you'll get turbulences that'll create low frequency sounds that are detectable. And those can be characterized by analyzing the signal coming out of the transducer that picks up that low frequency sound.
That's amazing. Looks like Brian Paul may have dropped off, or it looks like device is not connected. Brian, thank you for joining and holding down the ship while the audio was doing something. It was going someplace. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So it looks like, Dennis, it's just you, me, Carlos to wind the show. Carlos, you're a sponsor of this year's PerfBytes Use the Damned. Please tell us why you chose to sponsor PerfBytes Use the Damned. It seems like there's a natural intersection with the performance community from the tools that are up here, and I'll bring up the website as well.
James, you're cutting off a little
People
bit. I'm
can
not
see
sure
it. If I
me or
remember
you.
right, you've got a subscription solution to help people understand how to modify the website to make it faster, make it cheaper to run, and make it convert at a higher rate. Am I reading that right?
You are reading it right. We are still working. It's a work in progress on the site, and we're adding more products. We have few in the that James you already mentioned and brought up. One that goes well with the DCAA, that we have a patent, provisional patent applied for. And there's a press release, thanks, James, that went out. We're looking to grow the business and help more customers find the value in the data that we'll be able to collect and provide them the analysis of what's going on your site. So
And I think the big options here is that it's passive. No agent is required. You don't have to install anything. You can get full analysis of your website, what to change, what to improve. You don't have to buy a tool. You don't have to rent a person or put someone on payroll, and you can simply get what you need to change.
And the great thing about it also, James, is we'd be able to provide you a ranking of what needs and the impact of your changes on the system. So that's the big key. We will be able to provide you, if you fix this, this is the weight that you're having this on the system as a whole. So that's where you'll be able to prioritize what needs to be fixed and how quickly you need to fix it and how it's impacting your application.
I've actually got an example report up on the screen that shows bots in the system and which bots you need to change and mitigate. And let's see what else we have. Site configuration, modifying your cache, your CDN based upon priority, what's having the most impact on the site. Session. We have some cart items here. And then a custom application, including what to change and in what order. I think that's a very distinct item. It avoids the shiny squirrel issue of this is the longest running thing, but is it the most expensive to fix?
Correct. The other thing is that performance and security, and especially on the bot side, there's a big intersection that we have seen, and a lot of that is not being paid attention to, and those bots fall under security, but it's usually not identified because those are bots that usually think it's something that's okay to be on the side. The way we approach it is that those bots are creating havoc on your system, especially if they're outside the norm or demographics that you're expecting on the system. So we will be able to identify them, provide you an insight of how to mitigate those bots and what options you might have to work with them.
So under the subscription model, someone could get a bot report one quarter, and they could get a optimization report the next quarter or something of that nature.
We will be providing within the same. It's not within the same report. The bot will have both what it is and what we're seeing in production, and how to mitigate it. It goes back to what systems you have in place that would help do that. So we will provide an approach of what needs to happen, not a step-by-step, as you call it, like the what do you call it, the book that will provide you the step-by-step on how to fix something.
So what you're saying is this is not going to have an orange cover on it or a yellow cover, the Dummy's Guide or the Idiot's Guide.
The Dummy's Guide, yeah, thank you. I'm trying to find
it will tell you what needs to be changed.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, James, this is Dennis. Let me go ahead and sign off and say thank you for including us today.
And Dennis, I apologize for the audio problems. We had audio problems at the very beginning, and it seems like we had audio problems in the middle. So technology, we live in a fragile universe for technology. And, we just are an example of that today. Carlos, could you stick around to wind up?
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you. Bye.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
Bye-bye.
So, James, did you go over, did you find anything
we did have some outages for Black Friday. We went through a number of those earlier today. The last one I pulled in was kevinbridges.co.uk, which it was a ticket site, if I remember, for a concert. And we didn't really get a chance to discuss that. We'll bring up his site so we can see Mr. Bridges' site. Look, tour dates and things of that nature. Let me remove the report. We'll add this back to the stage. So we've got Kevin Bridges here. You should be able to see it on the screen. And I went ahead and ran performance on it using the WPA site from Perficuity. By the way, this site will go down at the end of this show. So if you were playing with it, it's going to go offline. This is kind of a beta run in a public fashion. But this person does have a preloaded shopping cart component. It's got some poor configuration on the website construction using Souders rules. And then we have a poor configuration on the protocol, which is it could be a more modern protocol in this case. Something that we haven't really talked about is the impact of monitoring agents in the header. The more agents you put in the header, the lower your score in this case. And, I've seen sites that have 15 to 20 monitoring agents in the front end from from Adobe, Google, Facebook, Twitter, all these analytics agents, plus their own. Maybe they have a New Relic or a Dynatrace or a Datadog internally, and they have this multiple collection of the same type of data. Reduce those number of agents. Make it easier to display your site. And if we wanted to get more detail on this particular site, Kevin Bridges, I went ahead and looked at the cart utility you provided, and we can see network shopping cart right up front that's causing this issue. That he probably just ran out of resources on his site. Carlos, did you notice any sites that went down today?
No, I haven't. There were like some glitches, but the sites will come back. Best Buy had like few glitches, but it wasn't it didn't go down.
Okay, so it slowed. Maybe had a spot. Someone couldn't reach it or something. Let's see what Best Buy looks like. It's been a while. Best Buy used to have, a challenge on Black Friday, pretty consistently. But let's see how they're doing these days.
I tried to join earlier, Sorry, I was a bit late too, James.
Oh, that's I think some of that may have been my fault as we switched sessions for how we were going to broadcast. Wow, it's taking a while to load Best Buy this morning.
Something is going on there.
Something is going on there, or maybe not going on there. Maybe that's the problem. Let's take the shortcut and see if there's something going on the cart system there. Cart not detected, so it's not a cart issue. It could be something as simple as, or is it a cart issue? Unknown, no cart. Okay, so there's nothing there. But then this says it does a cart preload. What is it? What cart is it preloading? Cart initialization scripts detected in page source. So there's something going on there for cart initialization, but not necessarily a full cart. So that's kind of weird. Notice what
protocol
rules and under HTTP protocol. HTTP protocol is, oh my goodness, look at this. 1.1. That is super old at this point. And that's an easy configuration change to make that gives you a lot of benefits of what's going on in the system. That is, you get compression of headers, you get caching of headers, you get a singular connection. So you get more pipeline effects where you don't get the overhead associated with a new connection and then having to speed up across TCP. So, they could benefit from some changes just in a protocol switch, not even changing the website in that case. But it does look like there are some benefits to them changing the websites for Souders rules and maybe some cart stuff as well. Carlos, anything else you've heard is going slow these days?
Not today, other than that one that I just brought up. But seems there's some opportunity for them to improve.
Yes, there is. And Robin Haynes is saying, is there a bug finder reward for down? I don't know that there's a bug finder reward for down, but it maybe we need a slowdetector.com like there's a downdetector.com. Somebody gave that to us a while back. Let's explore that, I guess. Well, Carlos, it is 11 o'clock. It is at the end of our broadcast. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share on this Black Friday with the community?
We, as being sponsored for your show, James, we would love opportunity to work with as many customers and provide value to them as possible. So looking forward to working with some of your listeners.
If you're interested, go to perfacuity.com. That's perfacuity.com and take a look at the offerings there and see if something applies to you. Certainly, it's a distinct performance engineering offering in the community. Thank you, everyone who has tuned in today. I hope all of you have had a wonderful Thanksgiving already, or if you have events coming up today in the next couple days, I hope you have a wonderful time getting together with family, with friends, and that you have something to be thankful for over the last year and the next year. For me, I am thankful for our community of developers and the fact that they are so much creatures of habit that I will have a job for the entire rest of my life as long as So to the developer community, I love you. Thank you. Keep doing what you do. This is a wonderful thing that you do for people like Carlos and Robin and myself. You're going to keep us in jobs forever. Thank you. Carlos, what are you thankful for this year?
Thankful that what you said too, I ditto what you just said. I agree fully with it, and thankful of family and a lot of good food yesterday and hopefully today.
I think that's a given. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be talking to StreamYard about this audio stuff, and I appreciate all of you taking time out of your day, not shopping online, listening to the Black Friday podcast of News of the Damned, and let's go out there and make sure slow software comes to an end in our lifetime. It is a doable item, and we can make it happen. Thank you very much. Have a great day and a great holiday season. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, James.